Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into Gray by Choice, which came out of a massive 9-year study that asked one simple but huge question. How do you build a truly great company when the world feels completely, utterly out of your control?
So let's jump right into that central question, shall we? In a world that's just packed with chaos and uncertainty, why is it that some companies manage to build lasting greatness, while others, facing the exact same storms, just fail? They just disappear.
Now, most of us would think the answer is obvious, right? You gotta be a bold, fast-moving innovator who can somehow predict the future. But the research team, led by Jim Collins and Morten Hansen, found out that that's pretty much a myth. The companies that really succeed operate by a completely different playbook.
To get to the bottom of this, the researchers specifically looked at companies in extreme, turbulent environments. Think about the early days of biotech or personal computing. And they were looking for a very specific type of winner. A company so exceptional, they gave it a special name, a 10X company. And get this, these winning companies, the 10Xers, they didn't just do a little bit better. They beat their industry stock market average by at least 10 times over a 15-year period. I mean, that's not just winning, that is an unbelievable level of dominance.
So the big question is, how on earth did they do it? Well, it turns out their success wasn't random at all. It came down to a set of very specific, repeatable behaviors that just set them apart from everyone else. And we're going to unpack that playbook right now, covering 5 key areas. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the mindset of the leaders who built these incredible organizations. Because it turns out it wasn't about being this larger-than-life, charismatic visionary that you see in the movies. Instead, these 10X leaders all shared 3 core behaviors. 1, they had fanatic discipline to just stay the course, no matter what. 2, they practiced empirical creativity, which is a fancy way of saying they relied on hard evidence, not just gut feelings or big ideas. And 3, they lived with a healthy dose of what's called productive paranoia, constantly asking, what if, and preparing for the worst even when things were going great. That combination, it proved to be absolutely unstoppable.
This unique mindset leads directly into their first major practice, what they call the 20-mile march. This is really where that fanatic discipline gets turned into relentless, measurable progress day in and day out.
Okay, imagine you're on a trek across Antarctica. You commit to marching exactly 20 miles every single day. Now, on the good days, when the sun is out, you have the discipline to stop at 20 miles, to conserve your energy for tomorrow. And on the bad days, you push through that blinding storm to make sure you hit your 20 miles. That is the 20-mile march, hitting your performance goals year after year without fail, but also having the discipline to hold back in the boom times to avoid getting greedy and burning out.
This quote just perfectly captures that relentless attitude. John Brown, the CEO of the medical device company Stryker, was famous for this. He'd hold a breakfast meeting for his division heads. If you hit your performance goals, your march, you got to eat at his table. If you didn't, you sat at a different table. It was a simple but incredibly powerful signal. Excuses were just not an option. And this slide just brilliantly illustrates the difference. Stryker was the marcher. They consistently hit their 20-mile march goal over 90% of the time. Their main competitor, USC, was a sprinter. They chased explosive growth with such insane aggression that, according to company lore, a salesman once hid so much inventory in a hospital's false ceiling that it literally collapsed. So, when a downturn hit, USC crashed and burned, while steady Stryker just kept on marching. So, if you're not making these huge, risky bets, how in the world do you innovate? Well, this is where that empirical creativity comes in, and it leads to the second key principle: fire bullets, then cannonballs. The idea here is actually pretty simple. Instead of firing one giant, unproven cannonball and just hoping you hit the target, you first fire a lot of small bullets. These are low-cost, low-risk experiments to find your aim. Once one of your bullets hits the mark and you have real-world proof that it works, only then do you bring in the big guns and fire a calibrated cannonball. And the difference is just stark. A calibrated cannonball is a confirmed bet. Like when the biotech company Amgen focused all its energy on the drug EPO after small-scale experiments proved its incredible potential. An uncalibrated cannonball, that's just a gamble. Like when Pacific Southwest Airlines launched a fly-drive-sleep program, buying hotels and rental cars without even testing the concept. It was a total disaster that lost money every single year.
You know, the data here is just undeniable. The 10Xers calibrated their cannonballs almost 70% of the time. Their competitors, they were gambling with uncalibrated shots nearly 80% of the time. And the result? The calibrated shots were almost 4 times more successful. It's not even close.
Okay, you might be thinking, but what about luck? Surely getting a lucky break is the deciding factor, right? Well, you might be surprised to hear that the research showed something completely different. So, the study meticulously cataloged every single significant luck event, both good and bad, that happened to all of these companies. And what they found was that the 10x companies were not luckier than their comparisons. They experienced a very similar number of both good and bad luck events. This really proves that it's not the luck you get, it's what you do with it. Take this quote from Malcolm Daly, a climber who somehow survived 44 hours alone on a mountain with shattered legs. He made it by focusing only on what he could control, which was staying warm and putting the uncontrollable horror of his situation on a shelf. 10Xers do the exact same thing with bad luck. See, 10Xers get a high return on luck. They don't just weather storms, they actually use them to get stronger. When a regulatory crisis hit the insurance industry in California, Progressive didn't just survive it, they saw it as a gift that forced them to create a revolutionary new claims service. They literally transformed a bout of terrible luck into a massive competitive advantage. So how do you tie all of these behaviors, the discipline, the creativity, the paranoia, together into a strategy that everyone in the company can follow consistently? The answer is something they call a SMaC recipe. SMaC stands for specific, methodical, and consistent. It's basically a clear, simple, and concrete set of operating rules that acts like a company's constitution. It tells everyone what to do, and just as important, what not to do. A classic example is Southwest Airlines' early rule: we will only fly Boeing 737s. It was specific, it was methodical, and they stuck to it consistently for decades. And this data, it really shows the stark difference. The 10x companies were incredibly consistent. They almost never changed their core recipe. Just look at Microsoft, only a 15% change, compared to Apple's 60% during that same period. Or Stryker at 10% versus USEC's 55%. The pattern is just undeniable. Let that sink in for a moment. In a chaotic world, our first reaction is to change constantly, to react to everything. But this research proves that consistency isn't the enemy of success, it's the very foundation of it. It's chronic inconsistency that's the true path to mediocrity. So the ultimate takeaway here is this: greatness isn't a matter of circumstance. It's not about being a genius visionary or being the fastest or even being the luckiest. Greatness is a matter of conscious choice and discipline. So the only real question left is, what will you choose?